very similar to you, 2023 was not the year that I hoped it would be. And, at about 6 months ago, and you're probably semi-familiar with it, but 6 months ago,
Yeah.
my whole world exploded or imploded, I should say. And within literally a 7-minute phone call, everything that I had in front of me was taken away and blown away like sand in the wind. And thankfully I hadn't like totally killed my brand, and or what I had been doing wasn't drastically different.
Yeah.
But from a revenue perspective, from a business perspective, from a like September 13th of 2023, like all of the metrics went back to zero. And so like it's a I think from that in the last 6 months I've gleaned this idea. And I think this is in any transitional aspect. It can be transitioning from college to your first job. It can be transitioning from your job to entrepreneurship, from entrepreneurship into a job, pick a parenting, marriage, partnership, pick a thing. I think the phrase that I feel like I've adopted, however, is that life is meant to be lived in the continue. And it took me a while when the numbers go to zero, it's really hard mentally and emotionally, spiritually, to not say I'm starting over. But what I recognized very quickly was that there was no starting over. I'm 40 years old. There's no starting over, my guy. Like the only thing starting over is if I get a hip replacement, then that thing is starting fresh. But outside of that, like there's no starting over. It's living in the continue.
What is up? Welcome back to the CA Power Player Podcast. I'm your host, Cody Askins. And today I'm as excited about this guest as anyone we've ever had on this thing, right? And you guys are about to see why. I am super excited, one, because he's going to be one of our featured headline speakers at this year's A-Personation Conference in Springfield, Missouri, my home city, July 17th through the 20th. Here's some detail about this individual. He's a coach, consultant, and speaker. He says one of his main mottos is build the life you actually want. And quick backstory, my wife and I, Lauren, were watching, I was watching an Instagram reel in the bed a couple weeks ago, and I was watching our guest, and I was listening to a certain part of a speech, and it was like, dude, this is so good. My wife leans over. She's like, oh, let me watch. She starts watching. She's like, he is freaking incredible. And then we spent like the next 20, 30, 40 minutes watching Rocky Garza Instagram videos from our room. What is up, buddy? Welcome to the podcast.
Man, thank you so much. I so appreciate you having me. And there's a lot of things I think people could say about like, hey, this helped me, or I really appreciate this. I mean, I think maybe that story might be like the new like front page testimonial. I mean, that's maybe the best thing I've ever heard. It's like it wasn't even I was like at work. It was like, hey, I was like hanging out with my wife, and then 20 minutes later we were like in the Rocky rabbit hole. Listen, I'm not going to complain about that. So that may be the best introduction I've ever had.
Thanks, bro. Well, dude, just the way you communicate, you communicate it in a unique way. Here's what I mean. You communicate in a way that like you're an authority figure. You communicate very clear. You come across extremely confident, but I believe you come across as one of the best, most humble communicators I've ever been around. You can communicate in a way that you get everybody's attention. You mesmerize a freaking room and they leave better than when you found them. However, you do it in a way without having to brag on yourself at all.
I think I'm going to be very clear. I spent a lot of my life hoping that I walked out of the room and you remembered who I was. And I don't say that I think I'm not going to toss the baby out with the bathwater, right? There is a level of authority. There is a level of conviction. And I think, and especially as a business owner, whether you own a business that has 1,000 people or you are the business owner because you are the business, right? There's a level needed to be able to speak confidently and to your words, with authority and with the ability and some vigor to be like, hey man, listen, this is what I know. And I have done that to the extreme, to where the goal walking off stage was that you were going to shake my hand to tell me that I was amazing. And I think I kind of, over the last 5 or 6, 7, 10 years, I feel like I've adopted this new mantra of, and I often say it in keynotes. Really, really, people think I'm saying it for them, but I'm really saying it as a reminder to myself of, if you leave here today knowing more about me than you know about you, then I feel like I failed you, because I'm not going home with you. I'm not going to be in your, and there's a very small select 10 or less people who I work with on a regular basis, right? So like, it's not like there, even the reality of like what I could, that is true. You could work with me. But if we're talking about getting in front of 30 events a year, there's 200 to 500 people at an event, that we can easily do the math on that. Like I can't change your life. I'm going to be very clear with you. That is not it's not my duty. However, if I've been given the opportunity that I have a chance that you have given me your attention
Mm-hmm.
for 30, 40, 60, pick the amount of time, and you don't leave with a clear understanding of yourself, because at the end of the day, when you go to bed at night, it's going to be you with you. It's not going to be me and you. So
Mm,
how do I equip you to see things in such a way that it allows all the things you were talking about, the communication, the charisma, the voice, the words, the talk fast to keep you in order to go into the right time is there to slow it down. All of that is so that you can have a moment with you. And I think for me, I spent a long portion of my life that not being the case. And so
yeah.
it's a pretty strong convictional thing I think I have now about where I am and who I am and what I really want the next decade. I'm 40, what I want the next decade of my life to be like. And I want it to be about my son knowing who his father was and how he loved him, and my marriage and my community. And I think speaking is great and coaching is amazing. And I love all of that. In 10 years from now, my son is going to be 18. He's going to go to college or get his first job or whatever he's going to do in 10 years from now. Who knows what that landscape looks like? I don't think that he's going to be concerned with what people thought about me for the last 10 years when I was on stage. Therefore, how do I communicate while I have the opportunity to be on stage?
Mm,
What is the impact I believe I'm having on my life, on my family, and on my son? Because I know the audience member is in the same stage of life.
yeah. And too, like, man, like I can totally understand what you're saying, because I feel like I'm going through an like evolution of me to a degree,
Mm,
where yeah, I was always speaking for the applause, and I was
mm,
speaking for I wasn't even speaking for, I was hoping they'd do business with me, but I was really just like, "Hey, I hope they say that I did a good job," you know? And I
mhm,
think the
mhm,
problem with that is you're right, there's a few layers to that. One, it's all about us,
mhm,
because we're worried about what everybody else thinks. So that's the biggest reason why people don't do social media or anything else, right? It's a fear of how they're perceived. And it's it's not as it's so much better to leave. Like, I had a lady bring me a card the other day. You'll love this. It was like literally this long, full of text. And I'm like, oh, I gotta read this, whatever. And I get it and I read it and I'm like, dude, halfway through, I just start bawling.
mm,
I'm like, I've had this type of effect and impact on someone's life and be able to help them in this way.
mm,
Holy freak. And so
mhm,
we went through a lot professionally last year, businesses, companies, et cetera. It was rough. However, it made me see everything in a different light,
mhm.
because things
Yeah,
have always been easy for Cody,
yeah,
And so
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, very, very similar to you. 2023 was not the year that I hoped it would be, and about 6 months ago, and you're probably semi-familiar with it, but 6 months ago,
Yeah.
my whole world exploded or imploded, I should say, and within a literally a 7-minute phone call, my everything that I had in front of me was taken away and blown away like sand in the wind. And thankfully I hadn't like totally killed my brand, and or what I had been doing wasn't drastically different.
Yeah.
But from a revenue perspective, from a business perspective, from a like September 13th of 2023, like
Mm,
all of the metrics went back to zero. And so like it's a I think from that in the last 6 months I've gleaned this idea. And I think this is in any transitional aspect. It can be transitioning from college to your first job. It can be transitioning from your job to entrepreneurship, from entrepreneurship into a job. Pick a parenting, marriage, partnership, pick a thing. I think the phrase that I feel like I've adopted, however, is that life is meant to be lived in the continue.
mm,
And it took me a while when the numbers go to zero. It's really hard mentally and emotionally, spiritually, to not say I'm starting over. But what I recognized very quickly was that there was no starting over. I'm 40 years old. There's no starting over, my guy. Like the only thing starting over is if I get a hip replacement, then that thing is starting fresh. But outside of that, like there's no starting over. It's living in the continue. But I think we get so consumed. A mentor of mine is an old guy, and I love hanging out with him. He talks real slow, and he always says, "Rocky, you look happy, Rocky. Are you happy?" He always talks to me that way. And I met with him 2 weeks ago, and he said, "Can I tell you the thing that I've learned from business?" He in his early 30s and 40s, him and a partner had one restaurant. They grew it to 167 restaurants in 10 years, went public, sold it. He's been retired since he was 48 and taught fourth grade science for free for the last 20 years because he could.
Wow.
And he said, "I'm going to tell you something." He said, you're really ambitious." He said, sometimes I don't know if you're ambitious or if you're curious or some combination of both." He said, "But can I tell you something I wish I'd have known when I was 40?" And I was like, "Bro, you better, I got a voice memo. I got AI. I'm taking hand notes. Like, please." And he said, "I want to remind you that the purpose of good work is good work. And the moment you make the purpose of good work high results, the work will fail and so will the results. But if you can do good work for the purpose of good work and you do it long enough, the results will automatically come. But don't lose sight of the reason that you're doing the thing that you're doing." And so I think in that transitional, in this last 6 months for me, in the last year for you, and this live in the continue, like life is on a continue. Life doesn't start over. We don't totally start over. It's not all brand new. Life is meant to be lived in the continue. I have a goal. I'm going to walk 10,000 steps a day. And if I get 9,500 one day, I don't wake up the next day and go, everything is shot. No, I woke up the next day and you know what today's goal is? Today's goal is to go 10,000 steps because life is meant to be lived in the continue. And I think as business owners, as professionals, and in relationships, if we can allow ourselves the freedom to say, how do we live in the continue? Then we recognize I get to bring all of my experience with me. I'm not starting over. I got 40 years of history I'm bringing to the table.
That's right.
And tomorrow, I don't know what's going to happen. So how do I allow myself to be as present as I possibly can be today? Because I have proven in 40 years, me stressing about tomorrow has never changed tomorrow.
No, and I love that you're sharing that because like as ambitious, driven entrepreneurs and people, so many people that will listen to this can relate to this. I'm constantly like pushing for results, driving based on results, and I end up treating other people based on results. I end up being happy or sad based on results. You know what I mean? Instead of
Yep.
that's such
Yeah.
good wisdom
Yeah.
you
I mean,
shared.
even my son, he's 8. We just started playing baseball this year. We just had our first baseball game this last weekend.
That's awesome.
And I mean, my guy has been putting in the work. He's putting the reps. He hit every ball. Like he was feeling himself. He had his glasses. Yeah. I mean, he is hilarious to watch. It's so fulfilling. But we got in the car. It's just he and I. And, he said, "Dad, did I do a good job today?"
Mm.
And I said, "Well, what do you think?" And he said, "Well, I hit the ball." I said, "Yeah, you did." He said, "And the balls that got hit to me, I stopped them." I said, "Yeah, you did." He said, "I cheered for the other team. Even when they were batting, I was yelling out their numbers." I said, "You were?" I said, "So what do you think?" He said, "Do you think I did a good job?" And I said, "Ezra, I think if I were you, I would be really proud of myself."
Mm.
That's what I think. And it takes everything inside of me to not go, "Bro, you freaking crushed it. Hit the ball, freaking hitting dingers, driving in runs," right? Like, we had that conversation later. Don't get me wrong. I was hyping him up. But in that moment, the purpose of the game was good work. And I need him to recognize that the purpose of the game is good work. And the results that he yielded from that game were due to his good work that he put in the 5 days prior. I don't know what next game will be like. He may not hit a ball in the next 3 games. I don't know. But I do know that if he can leave the game saying, I did good work and I'm proud of who I am, we should keep playing baseball. And I think there's a lot of us that right now in our professional life need to ask ourselves, are you producing good work? Listen, I'm all about results. I'm all about KPIs. I'm all about measuring, all about you hit it or you don't. Because here's the deal. You know what? Good feelings don't pay? Your mortgage. So I'm with you, right? And there is a constant tension. I love the word tension. I hate the word balance. I love the word tension. There is this constant tension between, for us as individuals, specifically entrepreneurs, or in any type of entrepreneur type role that we have. Like, your results are only ever going to be the ability to measure all of the activity and good work you did yesterday. So yes, I want to have a timestamp to go like, okay, let me do my check-in. Let me do my weekly check-in. Let me do my daily check-in. Great. Check your numbers daily. But the result of that isn't going to be a direct result of the activity today. It's going to be the measure of the good work that you did and to do good work over the last 30 days. Because if so, I'm telling you, I've been surprised every 30 days of the last 6 months. The end of every month, I'm like, golly, here we go again. I got to do this over again. And you know what? I got to go back and go, wait a second. I started to make a list, Cody. I started making a list at the end of every month. I want to make a list of everything that happened this month that on the first of this month was not even in my brain was going to happen. So that when I think about next month, I can't wait to be surprised.
I love that.
Because I want to live in the continue, and I want the purpose of good work to be good work. And I know if I am doing that, I'm not saying be a flake. I'm not saying lay around. I'm not saying play golf every day and don't do your calls and don't hear what I'm not saying. Every month for the last 6 months, at the end of the month, I have a list of things that you could not have convinced me were going to happen. I'm going to be really frank if people are listening. The fact that you responded back to me and said, I'd love to have you come speak at 8%. I've been talking about 8% since you did the very first one.
I know.
That was, I don't know how many years ago that was. Like
7.
I've been talking about 7 years, for 7 years, somehow, some way. I've been like, I mean, I got to get an 8%. I got to get up there. How am I going to get out there? Well, the product of 7 years later is not just simply follow up, because there were 2 or 3 years I didn't say anything about it. I just was make sure that we were connected, right? But the purpose of 7 years later, however it was that we were like, yeah, let's make it happen. That wasn't on my docket. I didn't wake up 30 days, but prior to that, be like, all right, 7 years the year. That's not how it works. So I think we all have that ability, but sometimes because we're so caught in I screwed it up yesterday, or we're so caught in it's never going to work tomorrow, we miss the opportunity to say, how about I just do some good work today?
Dude, you know what? I didn't even think about the fact that you have checked in and been present and like been there and been around, you know what I mean? And just like for years, like just occasional message, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. There's certain things I've got to get so much better at, right? Dude, that's one of them. I'm running so fast. Life gets so busy. I forget to check on key relationships, impressive people I want to get to know, people, whatever, things I want to be involved in. Like I move, and then I am starting to realize, because I used to say like, I mean, dude, it's all about money, but at the end of the day, sure, we made some money, but like, man, the impact that you make and the people that you get to meet and those cool surprises that happen every now and then, those are pretty freaking awesome,
Yeah, and I think it'd be a really fun exercise at some point. I'm sure there's an infinite variety. There's a million. Let's pretend there's 3, right? Because it'll make better from our analogy. I agree. I love me some money too. And I think there are ways in which we could pick the top 3 or 4 archetypes by which entrepreneurs and business owners make money, recognize the value of money, see the implication of impact and good work, watch what happens to the money. And at some point we all end up, if we follow the same path, we all end up at the same place in a decade with plenty of money and plenty of impact. Right. And that's always the goal, which freaking amazing. However,
maybe more,
maybe. And so I think that the space between year 1 and year 10 and the variety of paths to get there, it's almost like we got to create the 4 archetypes to do it so that we can just pick a general map and then be okay. Right. Like I remember, I can't even think of when it was the very first time. It might've been at Evan Stewart's conference. Might've been the first time. That was 2018.
Obsessed. Yeah.
Obsessed Con, the very first one. And I think that was my very first entrepreneur conference to ever speak at. And then I remember you spoke there because you were about to either do the first or the second 8% you'd ever done. And it was like freaking huge and amazing and so on. Correct. And I remember thinking like, sheesh, my guy's like 10 years younger than me. He is. And I remember thinking like, what am I doing? Like, this is not going to work, but to think about, like I at 10 years into my business, like I recognize this is good, bad, or indifferent. It's not a value statement of anybody else. It's a statement of truth for me. Yeah. Like I chose for a long time to play very small because I was so afraid of success. And I was so afraid of what it would do to me because I never had a picture of a husband and a father that I admired who grew a business that I also admired. And I'm not saying they didn't exist. I just didn't know them. Right.
Sure.
And so I felt like I had to make a decision. I have a choice. I have a great business and a shitty marriage and be an okay father, be a great husband and father and a friend, and kind of have not shitty, but have a slower business. And those are the only two paths I thought there were. And so I consciously made the decision, I'm going to have a slow business, I guess, because I'm not going to be the husband I don't want to be. And I'm not going to be. But I woke up a year and a half ago and thought, I've been living the last 2 years attempting to become something I am not. Why am I afraid of becoming a bad husband and father? That's not who I am. The first affirmation I write down every day is I'm a loving, intentional husband and father. That's who I am. Why am I afraid of? I am protecting myself of becoming something I actually am not. Right. And so we can find any of those archetypes and go, there's a place where we go. To your point, it's all about money. We got to get the money. And then you get the money and you're like, I mean, we have the money, but now what? Now what do we do? Like we have the money and we have a lot of entities, but this shit is confusing. And what do we really want to do? And every business I've ever known at some point pares down and gets rid of half and then revamps the other three and then picks the three they really love. And they do that for the next decade. And I think that's great. That's it. It is a way.
Yeah.
The same thing applies to your relationships. The same thing applies to you being a parent. The same thing applies to your friendships. The same thing applies to yourself. Man, if you're listening right now and you think, man, I think I'm in the industry I want to be in, but it's just not working for me. And somebody says, what do you really want? The greatest answer I can encourage you to say out loud to somebody you trust is, I don't know. Just say you don't know. Don't stop working. Don't stop doing what you're doing. But do what you're doing with the mentality and understanding. Man, I don't even know if this is it. Great shit. Welcome to the club. I'm glad. At least now we can ask the right kind of questions. But we have an option to be ignorantly humble, or we have the option to be ignorantly arrogant. I've never met a human being who's not ignorant. We all are. We all have something we don't know.
Yeah.
It's your choice on whether or not you want to be ignorant and humble and go, I don't know what I don't know. Or you want to be ignorant and arrogant and go, I don't need to know anything else. I'll be fine.
Why do we have such trouble saying, I don't know? You know, like here's an example. When if you're in front of an audience and you pull someone up to play a game, answer a trivia question, whatever, dude, we're going to make it up because we don't want to look like a fool before we say, I don't know.
Yeah. I think one, let's go back to general way in which most of us are valued and seen as humans, specifically Western culture, specifically in America. And none of these are knocks. This is truth. We're talking about like reality. Well, we're measured by what, how do we measure ourselves? Well, we're measured by our income. We're measured by our status. We're measured by our followers. We're measured by our influence. We're measured by pick a thing. And there's always a metric, right? Nothing wrong with that. It's welcome to real life. Everything is measured, right? What gets measured gets accomplished. It's a great thing. However, having an answer, even if incorrect, I think we have convinced ourselves that somehow that puts us in a level of superiority or authority that we all long to be in, because we don't have enough voices saying, for the love of mercy, please say, I don't know. Don't get me wrong. This is not trash talking anybody out there who's doing this. I can only speak from my experience. But we are at minimum a decade into the loudest voices saying, if you actually want to be happy and you actually want to be valuable, you have to have at least what I have. Otherwise, you're probably not doing a very good job. And this is not a statement about any person, any voice, any influence, any opinion, like a friend of mine, Matt Monero, you know him as well. He has a book called You Need More Money, and his story is beautiful and what he did and what he could, like, listen, I am not telling you to lower the standard by which you value to create your life. That's not it. But if you're trying to build a life that looks like mine because you think mine looks good, please don't do that. It's not going to work. It's not going to work for you.
No.
Like, nobody is going to replicate what Andy Elliott does, because he's just a different human and he likes it and he wants it. And great. I'm glad he does. I have no qualms with Andy Elliott or his wife or what they do or what he wants to do. That's his life. I don't have nothing to, Nothing
That's
to do
right.
with it.
Yeah.
However, if his way is the loudest way, then inevitably it will be the path that most people feel the need to follow.
Mm-hmm.
That's not Andy's fault. I'll be very clear about that. He's doing his
No.
thing. Well done. Keep it up, my guy. However, we just know that to be true. And I would like to believe that holding space, I define space as a momentary pause to assess what is. Not good, not bad, not positive, not negative. Don't tell me why it's valuable or not valuable. Just be willing to be honest with me. The more opportunities we can create, right? It's for me why, like, I love, this is not a pitch for 8%. This is me and like, I love the more time I have with people, the better. Because I gotta draw out that time frame that allows you a moment to actually sit and be purposeful with your time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just I don't think I have anything to tell you in 30 minutes. It's going to be so profound. You write it down. It's going to change your life. I need you to sit awkwardly for 30 minutes, at least in between, to be like, what am I doing? This guy's bringing out questions I didn't even know I should be thinking about. Great. That's the goal, right? So I think there's a part of that. And I honestly feel like there's an upward trend in business for sure. I spend a majority of my time in the corporate space, but business and entrepreneur and conferences like 8%, where we are watching, if you can get it from me on YouTube, then I don't want to tell it to you on stage. So if you can get it from me online, then I need to be able to create an experience on stage that you can only get with me in person, right? And so I think for me, I see trending, I kind of see everything has moved and is beginning to move more in that direction because of the rise of content and media, which I'm a part of like anybody else. But
Yeah.
I mean, I could go, there's a lot of people I could go see everything they've ever said. And the next time I see them in person, they're going to do the same thing and say the same thing because that's what they do. And there's nothing wrong with that. But why do I want to go? Why do I want to go hear you? I already heard you 6 times this year say it.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard you 6 times this week say it. So I'm going to go hear you say it again. And I'm going to write it down. And this time it's going to stick. I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. I'm not the judge of that, but I think there is something to that, the experiential opportunity. So back to your point, why do we all make it up or are afraid to say, I don't know? Because most of us have yet to be comfortable with ourselves enough that we don't even admit to ourselves that we don't know.
Yeah. You, like, it's funny because, like, dude, you're saying a bunch of things that I've never heard you say, and I've seen you speak several times, and we're riffing without script. You didn't say. Some people are like, "Hey, I got to know the questions," and I'm like, "Dude, I don't know the questions. I'm having a conversation.
Right.
I may know the first one, maybe the second one if we can it, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, you went different directions today that I didn't think you would go.
Mm.
And I think that's people that are doing content. Like, the content needs a chance to breathe. It needs to live. It needs to, you know what I mean? And Rocky is the content, like, it's him.
Yep.
Is he going to put it all out? No, but it's him.
Well, and I think that's the part where for a lot of us, I think, you can go back and you can go to, I can't think of the guy's name, the very kind of YouTube first guy. He's got kind of a smaller, longer hair. Anyway, his name will come to me in a second. And then, after him, then it was Gary Vee. And so, where they were the content and they followed him around, and D-Rock was filming everything that he ever did in every part of his life. And there's obviously opportunity and value to that. And I think at some point though, if we allow ourselves to be so consumed with following the right path and journey that somebody else has laid out for us, we allow all of the possibility about tomorrow rob us of all the opportunity of today. I'll say that again.
Like that.
I want to be really mindful that I don't allow all of the possibilities of tomorrow rob me from taking advantage of all of the opportunities today. Right?
That's good.
And so, like, right now, from 1 to 1:30, 40, whatever we do here, like, I only have one objective. That's to attempt to be as present with you as I can. My email and my text and all the things are turned off. Like, what? Yeah, but what if you get an important email? What? It'll be there when I'm done. That's what'll happen. And so, what I do know though is I do know that I've waited 7 years to be on a screen with you and have a dialogue as humans. And I do know that I have, right. And then so, but what's the CTA you're going to have? Like, don't you make sure you have the CTA at the end? So that when your call to action, when it's telling people, my call to action is, if this is something you enjoyed, buy a ticket to 8% Nation so we can, like, see each other in real life, share a hot dog and have a dialogue about your merit. Like, I don't know. I don't understand what the additional call to action would be. I don't need you to, don't buy anything. You don't know me. Don't buy anything from me. If you trust Cody, then you probably have some level of trust in me. And if you end up at the event, we'll see each other in real life. Then you can make a decision about what it is that you want to do. My job is not to convince you to do something because I think it's right. My job is to help you understand what it is that you actually want and make sure that you have a trusted guide in your corner, getting you to the place that you want to be. I don't know what you want. People ask me all the time, well, what's your coaching program look like? What's the 12-week lessons? Do you know where you want to go yet? Oh man, I'm working on it. So I don't exactly know how I'm going to help you get there yet. So I don't know. I don't know what I got it from tried and true methods. We're going to start with identity mapping. We're going to talk about the imposter within. We're going to make sure you got a good morning routine. I mean, there's some things I think are for good humans, but my guide is not to put you on the path that I think you need to be successful. My job is to be the trusted guide to help you get to the life you want. You want to build a life that you can get in a Maserati? My guide, let's go. And if you just want that new blacked out edition of the Hyundai Sonata, I can't wait for you to have that. I don't care what car you drive or what business you built or how much money. It has no implication on me. However, if I can't be the trusted guide to help you get to the place that you want, I don't know that I can help you. So I don't need you to get to where I want you to go. I need you to get to where it is that you want to go. And it may take us 6 weeks for you to figure out what it is that you want. That's a beautiful thing.
I'm loving this, man. Why didn't we do this sooner, Rocky?
Yeah.
Come on.
It just took us a little time. It just took us a little
7
time.
years, right? Here's the last question I was thinking about. You've mentioned this at least 3 times on 3 separate occasions in this interview, and that is comparison. You know, and that's something that I've always struggled with. I still do. Like, I see all these guys. You mentioned Andy, you mentioned Cardone, you mentioned Brad, you mentioned whoever. And I'm like, you mentioned Tony Robbins, whoever, ET. I'm like, why the freak am I so far behind, man? I get so frustrated and caught up in that. I heard someone a while back say comparison's the thief of joy. And then I just get so worked up, and then I forget. And then what's funny is I'll be like, gosh dang it, why isn't this working? We're so far behind. What are we doing? I'll get so annoyed, and my wife will say, what about the card you just got yesterday that I was talking about earlier? And I'm like, she's like, why don't you just take a second and look at what God has done for us? And I'm like, yeah, she's right.
She's right. Yeah.
What's
so
your thoughts on?
My first thought is, hey, your wife is right. Hey, good interview. See you guys next time. But okay, well, I'll give you my opinion, but I also think she's right.
She's normally right.
Yeah, she is. She is. So I think that most of the time we fall into a position where we are comparing ourselves to someone else and feel insufficient, in part because we lack the picture of what it would be like to compare ourselves to ourselves. And so part of it is natural. Of course, I look at Tony Robbins as well. I look at Tony Robbins. I look at Mel Robbins. Even in a weird way, I look at somebody like Steve Harvey or things like I look at like, okay, man, I love to see it. I look at Karamo. I know it's a weird reference, but if you ever watch the show Queer Eye on Netflix, and there's the guy who kind of does what I do, but does it on there. He has his own show now, the Karamo Show. I think he's a great dude. We also share the same hairstyle. So like, I look at these folks and I'm like, man, like, somebody just give me a shot. I tell my wife all the time, I'm just waiting for my moment. I'm just waiting for that. There's a phone call, there's a text message, there's an email, there's a TikTok DM. I don't know. There's something out there that's going to happen. I know it. And it's going to be the thing that it's just going to be the right time. Until then, if I look at Tony Robbins, by the way, 2 decades my senior, that would be dumb to compare my current journey to where he is. If I look at ET, 15 years my senior. If I look at Mel Robbins, 12 years my senior. If I look at Steve Harvey, 25 years. Okay. So interesting, right? How our Cardone, my guy's like, what, 67? I don't know. My guy's approaching 70 at this point, like 30 years my senior. We tend, I think it's a healthy practice to formulate the picture of what you want based on the paths you've seen somebody else walk. I think it's wiser once the general path you see from somebody else is in your sights. It is paramount to craft the path which you desire to go. There's a book called The Lion Tracker's Guide to Life. Weird reference. but it's a great book by a guy named Boyd Vardy. He's him and his family own a safari out in South Africa, and he's been a lion tracker. And basically, a lion tracker is someone in the safari who wakes up in the morning about 4 a.m. They go out to find the lions, and they radio back in and say, "Hey, today the lions are here in this location." So when they bring the safari, they can actually go find them. So their job is to go track the lion for the day, so that the Jeep can drive by and everyone's like, "We found the lion." Well, it's someone's job to go find them every day, and they
That's
typically go out. Right? It's
crazy.
wild. But he has this phrase in the book, and I can't shake it, dude. I can't get it out of my brain. I think as I coach individuals in my consulting practice, I just can't shake this phrase. And I think it goes along with your question here. He says, as a lion tracker, every day when I wake up, I have no idea where I am going, but I know exactly how I'm going to get there. And I think when it comes to us painting a picture of our life, 5-year, 10-year, 15, 20-year picture, if you would have asked me 10 years ago when I was 30, if this is where I'd be when I was 40, I would have laughed at you. Good, bad, and indifferent, all of it. So for me to even begin to say, in 10 years from now, I will be right here, I don't know about that. However, I don't know exactly where I'm going, but I do know exactly how I'm going to get there. And that's not going to be by comparing my journey to somebody else's arrival. I'm not going to compare my milestones to somebody else's monument. I'm not going to compare my today to somebody else's decade. I'm going to do my best to stay present, to live in the continue, to do good work for the purpose of good work, to be as humble and as honest and truthful and as kind of a human being that I can as often as possible. And love my wife and my kids and my community and my family, and trust that when everything else goes away, those are going to be the things that remain. So I don't know exactly where I'm going, but I want to wake up most days and feel like I know exactly how I'm going to get there.
So good, dude. I love having you a part of this thing. Excited for you to be involved, and thank you for being on the Power Player podcast. If they want to learn more, keep following you, what should they do? Where should they go?
Yeah. Hit me up at just Rocky Garza. It's ROCKYGARZA on all platforms. It's just at Rocky Garza. Look for the bald guy with big eyebrows. There's not a lot of us out there, so you'll be able to find me. Hit me up on the gram. We're out there on all the platforms, but Instagram's probably the easiest place to go. I see it and look at it and see it myself, and feel free, shoot me a message. Would love to hear where you're at or what you're doing, or if there's any way that I can support you in your self-clarity, self-confidence, daily habit, and building meaningful relationships. That's the space where we live.
Thanks, man. You're amazing. Love you, brother. Appreciate you being a part of
Appreciate you, sir. Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you guys for hanging with us, man. What a freaking episode. Oh my gosh. Stop and let me know in comments what your favorite part of today's episode was. I also want to share once again, 8% Nation is coming up in a matter of days, weeks, months, depending on when you're watching this right now. It's literally just under 3 months, under about 100 days. Rocky is one of our featured headline speakers. Phenomenal dude, incredible speaker. If you've never seen him in a room, you're like, dude, I loved him on YouTube. Imagine being there with him. Stop what you're doing. Go to 8%nation.com. Check out what we got going on. Check out the tickets. We would love to have you hang out with us in Springfield in July. Thanks for hanging with us on the podcast. Follow Rocky Garza, and we'll see you on the next one. Adios. Hey, if you enjoyed this, I got another one you're going to love. It's right there. Click on it. See you in there. I'm so excited for today's CA Power Player podcast. I'm your host, Cody Askins. We got a special guest. He is back on the channel talking about how to sell life insurance from home. Here's what I love about this person. Okay, I'm telling you, this will be one of the best.